This is part 3 of why the men's rights movement will not succeed, and many of you are wondering why I am bashing the men's rights movement, a label that up until recently I identified as, well, I think when this series is finished that will be explained. Oh, and you know when a video begins with preamble, it's a bad sign, it leaves the viewer saying fuck, how long is this going to be? However, it's nowhere near as bad as a video that opens with a prologue. A preamble is a bit of an introductory ramble. A prologue is a pre-chapter in a book. You know to run when I open a video with prologue. This video was meant to be just part 3, however, I've decided to split this video into 2 parts, so it will be part 3 and 4, with part 5 being the video showing MRA apathy. This video, part 3 and 4, is meant to showcase the behavior I was talking about regarding the traditionalist/MRA/anti-feminist political activism branching from their sexual dysfunction, the fetishizing of the housewife and a longing for a society of submissive women, a fierce opposition to any type of independence from women. The evidence for this is going to be a blogger by the name of Matt Forney, whose name often just sounds weird being pronounced by this text-to-speech. The problem with using only Matt Forney's blog posts is threefold. First, I don't think he identifies as MRA or MGTOW. I think he is one of these right-wing capitalist and PUA types like Aaron Clary. But he does use the words red pill and manosphere. He doesn't identify as a traditionalist, though right on his About section, says part of what he is about is the restoration of traditional sex roles. Well, that's what a traditionalist is. The second problem is I am analyzing one man. I said 80 to 85% of the MRM. Well, this is one guy. One guy isn't even close to being 1% of the MRM. But I think his proclamations and their rationality and grammar will strike many chords among my MGTOW audience who have argued with no shortage of tradcans, and I believe the way he expresses himself should give you a template by which to compare future tradcan arguments against. Also, about that number 80 to 85%, yeah, it's obvious I am pulling that number out of my ass. I didn't take some kind of survey, it's a fictional number to express how it looks from my point of view. Your experiences and point of view will differ. Look at it this way, how many MRAs who do not identify as MGTOW, are also not traditionalists? I'd say very few. If you are an MRA, and you know what MGTOW is, and you do not also identify as MGTOW, it is most likely because you are a traditionalist. It could be that you are married thus cannot take up the label MGTOW, or that you are a woman. But how many are there even in this movement that aren't traditionalists? I can count them on one hand, and I can't even swear they're not traditionalists. So, how many non-MGTOW MRAs are there, that aren't tradcans or trads of some sort? I'm going to pull a number out of my hat and say maybe 15% to 20%, and that's being generous I think. So this video series could have been titled Why Does Traditionalism Fail? But the problem is, traditionalist conservative and men's rights activists are practically synonyms at this point. The traditionalists do not march under the label traditionalist or tradcan, that's a bit of a pejorative label that we give to them. They call themselves men's rights activists, while not giving a shit about men and men's rights. And how many anti-feminists are there, who do not identify as MRA? None. I believe every strictly anti-feminist uses the label MRA, all of the trads. The anti-fems for whatever reason, either identify exclusively as MRA or identify as MRA as a second label. They do it for popularity. The term MRA catches on, so they jump on that label. As the MRA label has stagnated in popularity and recognition even by feminists, they jump onto the booming MGTOW label to spew their traditionalist shit from. But I'm not getting into that at the moment. The end result is men's rights activists are primarily about anything but men's rights. Being a pity about women's independence and longing to return women to the house and kitchen, would be their primary motive. And as I said, for a lot, though not all, that desire to put them in their place and make them submissive and subservient is based on sexual dysfunction, as I am going to demonstrate with Matt's blog posts. It is only a shame these blue pillars don't understand. There is nothing submissive or subservient about stay-at-home wives. If anything, it is the man in a position of slavery and servitude. Not always, but more times than not. And 3. Matt Forney has a reputation for trolling the manosphere. He once had a website called Victoria's Secret Garden where he posted sometimes really over-the-top things, like Christian marital discipline with butt plugs, and other shocking nonsense for page hits. However, these blog posts I am about to show you, I believe these are genuine, over a year later, and no confession to haha, I trolled you, and it fits with everything else about himself and his self-description on his blog. And when he has admitted his trolling exploits under other personas, he has done so on this site. And even if this is just him trolling, I want you to listen to him and ask yourself how many times you have heard any of these arguments while arguing a tradcan. How many of these proclamations he makes have you read in the comments of my videos from my detractors? How many times has Janet Bloomfield repeated these things? Just ask yourself that, look for the familiarity of it, and I think you'll start to see what I am talking about. Hopefully you will spot all these familiar arguments and see the perfectly logical underlying sexual root. You'll see that these stereotypical tradcan arguments are often not being asserted because they work but because it matches their sexual identity. It correlates with their sexual desires and sexual dysfunctions. And I'm not going to just read his blog and be done with it. I am going to be arguing back, as a way of helping to deconstruct the fallacies, and to crack a few jokes and try to keep this somewhat entertaining. And if you are a traditionalist, and you agree with this guy's points, well then what does that say about you? The case against female education.
If you're a girl pursuing anything more than a high school degree, you're in all likelihood wasting your time.
But a high school degree is still good for them, right? Is there some reason they shouldn't just drop out? Hell, why even bother mandating girls to graduate above a 5th grade level? After all, you don't need to know Shakespeare to change diapers. I'm just asking, why go all the way up to high school, but not above? Makes no sense.
Encouraging girls to go to college and grad school en masse is one of the biggest mistakes America has ever made.
One of the biggest? You mean, top 5, top 20, top 100? Just saying, America made a lot of damn mistakes, but this, folks, is one of the biggest.
The flood of girls into universities is not only in part responsible for the current economic crisis,
it's not even remotely responsible for the economic crisis.
It's made it increasingly difficult, if not impossible, for both girls and men to fulfill their natural roles.
Natural roles? He's a tradcan, folks.
At the same time, higher education has been degraded by so many unqualified girls getting accepted into college.
You need to be able to offer evidence for this statement, but you don't.
Those girls have seen their egos unjustifiably boosted by their degrees, making them unsuitable to be wives and mothers. In order for society to be cured, this is to be fixed. Here are my reasons why girls should be discouraged from going to college.
Women's inflated egos has nothing to do with college. It's the fact men worship women, makes these oblivious bobbleheads walk around like entitled goddesses. Anyhow, can't wait for your reasons why women don't belong in college.
1. Going to college makes girls less attractive. Girls, in their socially sanctioned solipsism, assume that men are turned on by the same things that they are. Because girls crave high-status men, they assume that men similarly find their high status attractive, which couldn't be further from the truth. No man alive has ever said, "God damn, I love the master's degree on that girl." It's usually, "God damn, she's got a rack that could stop a runaway train." Or, "God damn, this girl's cooking is to die for."
No man has ever said this woman's cooking is to die for. No man has ever had his decision to fuck, date, or marry a woman based on her cooking. You tradcans are a fucking joke.
As a result, 4+ years of college more often than not ruins a girl. For starters, the extended adolescence that is college encourages sluttiness, which wrecks a girl all on its own.
I know, when a woman has had sexual partners before you, it makes you insecure about your performance, and it reminds you how disposable you are. It ruins the sense of specialness she bestows upon you. Of course the problem might be you require a female to make you feel special/important/complete.
All those hunks splooging in her vagina make it more likely that she'll end up divorcing the man she does end up marrying.
What the fuck are you basing this on? I think you're just projecting your own fears and insecurities right now. I understand that if you are desperate for a long-term partner, and a woman that jumps from man to man, a slut, is willing to sleep with you, you fear that she's not going to be with you for the long haul. I get that. I mean, let's face it, you're still going to sleep with her no matter what, and women know this, and thus laugh at your insecurity. But the point is, I get that you want a pristine virgin for the assurance she's never going to leave you, and a long history of hookups is a red flag, but once she settles down for marriage, she's already made the decision that you are special. You are the one, thus her history of casual sex has already come to an end. Again, this fear she is more likely to divorce you, is just insecurity, and devoid of logic. It's emotionally driven, that is your insecurity. What gets me is how much men shoot themselves in the foot with their fear and loathing of sluts, and it's a silly fear, because the same man who wags his finger at a woman for having too many sexual partners in college, will then pull out his wallet and throw hundreds at a prostitute to give his needy ass some sex and fake love for the night, and women know this. They see you wagging your finger and slut-shaming them, all the while knowing if she gave you the green light you'd have your pants around your ankles begging for it, and you just end up being a sexually frustrated chump who ends up paying a hooker that has had 50 to 100 times the sexual partners she has. You'll drop to your knees and throw money at a hooker, begging like a simp for sexual relief, and then wag your finger at the college girl with too many sexual partners. It's all hypocritical. You're full of shit. It's based on your insecurity. It is an effort to control women via their sexuality. Women know this. Again, the man who pays a hooker will shame a college girl for too many partners, and play this she's broken and won't make a good wife. This is just the sort of statement insecure men make when they are pointlessly listing the qualities of their perfect woman, and you know they'll end up settling for any old fat slut that gives them the time of day. Therefore the crying about her sexual past is laughable. And the thing is, women know this about guys like you, and to the mid-toe in my audience who still date women, purple pillars I think they're called. I just want to help you guys out. When people like Matt here say the shit he says, he is projecting his insecurity like a spotlight, and believe me, women can sense this shit, and you know women hate insecurity, low self-esteem, and neediness. Seriously, if you say things like women should stay out of college because college makes them sluts and sluts make bad wives, if some guy spits out logic like that, the amount of deep-rooted psychological problems, control issues, and all-around insecurity, revolts women. I just remind the guys in my audience of this, because so many men broadcast their insecurity in ways that are so loud, it chases off women and then they stand around not being able to figure out why girls won't date them. Anyhow, in keeping with destroying your slutaphobia, the average high school girl has had more sexual partners than most men will have in a lifetime, and furthermore, it is doubtful they're having any more sex while attending college than non-college attendees. The amplified frequency of sex is based mostly on their age. 21-year-old women, with a license to drink and drive, though hopefully not at the same time, gets around, gets drunk, and has the largest variety of men to sleep with, and has fully sexually matured. So yeah, 21-year-old females have more sex than 14-year-olds, college has nothing to do with it. Again, Matt, you sure do wear your sexual insecurity on your sleeve. I thought at first this was some feminist doing satire, but folks, I'm pretty sure Matt here is the real deal.
Sluts are emotionally broken, incapable of loving and serving men.
Serving men.
Squandering their gifts of femininity and beauty, constantly trying to trade up for a bigger, better deal that never comes. Marrying a slut is like paying full price for a beat-up old clunker.
You just confessed marriage is paying for a woman.
Additionally, college is problematic because it gives girls the illusion of knowledge. Outside of STEM degrees, which are deficient in their own way, few majors actually impart useful information to girls.
The same can be said for guys.
Yet they still think they're entitled to respect for having the degree. Credentialism at its finest. Girls come out of college without being able to cook, sew, balance a checkbook or perform any of the necessary tasks of modern living.
You're kidding, right?
Yet they still think they're smart and independent, and don't you dare suggest otherwise.
But if she's paying her own rent, then she is technically independent.
Don't forget the massive amounts of student loan debt that these girls rack up, which you become in part responsible for if you're dumb enough to put a ring on it.
Don't marry a bitch. It's the first and only intelligent thing you've ever said. Unfortunately, you're pro-marriage, just not pro-marrying a woman that went to college, so as much as I want to give you a point, I just can't.
Woman is not a learning animal. The two most fulfilling relationships I've ever had were with girls who hadn't yet graduated from college.
So it's not the going to college that ruins them, it's the graduating?
One was midway through her degree and the other had not started yet, because they hadn't had their minds poisoned by the lies of academia.
The lies of academia. You know folks, I didn't originally hide my face for anonymity. I did it because if I can't talk, why have a text-to-speech program read while I stare vacantly into a camera? And then my anonymity became a thing. But it's times like this I wish I had a video camera, just so you could see the facial expressions I have when he says some of the dumb and weird shit that he says. Because facial reactions speak volumes in response to this man, I'm gonna have to just Google some pics to give you an idea. Matt, say that last thing you said, again.
One was midway through her degree and the other had not started yet, because they hadn't had their minds poisoned by the lies of academia.
The lies of academia, you say? That's interesting, Matt. Do go on.
They were fun to be around, girly, and eager to please.
Fun, and eager to please? I thought you didn't like sluts.
They hadn't had their hearts broken through countless drunken hookups. When I explained something to them that they didn't understand, they actually listened to me and did what I told them instead of accusing me of mansplaining.
Because college?
If girls are like gold coins, sending them to college is like dunking them in nitric acid.
Are you sure they're not like donuts, and college is like dunking them in milk?
Girls who go to college are extremely likely to get sexually assaulted.
You know that's a work of fiction, right?
Given the massive rape epidemic on college campuses, universities are massively unsafe places for girls. As feminists love reminding us, universities are ground zero for rape culture. 1 in 4 girls will be raped before the end of her college tenure. Given this information, why would anyone who cares about their daughter's well-being let her do something as reckless as going to college? You might as well parachute her into the worst part of Detroit with a free fuck toy sign taped to her back.
Unsafe place, is this a spoof on safe space? And you say, let her. Let her, like the parents of an 18-year-old have lawful authority over her. You know folks, I'd be lying if I said it never occurred to me that this might be satire. However, if it was satire, it would only exist as such for the purpose of ridiculing these ideas. Matt is not a feminist, and I've seen other posts of his like this, and the guy who linked it to me on Davis, MJ, or Reenie's video, didn't hand it to me as satire. He used it to back up his argument, and the argument thread this appeared in was a guy arguing very similar things and repeating the women working depreciated the male wage myth, and the Orini video itself I was commenting on was in regards to Orini talking about the evils of feminism getting women to work, and just the fact I have seen so much of this, especially the early anti-feminist community pre-YouTube, this is the way every anti-feminist blog sounded back then, so, I'm going to just say this is not satire. However, it's just so stupid and hard to believe he can be for real. Anyhow, if men really were raping women on campus, this is not a good reason to keep women out of college, it's a good reason to tighten security. However, women are not being raped on campus, so it's not even a point, and I think he knows this, which makes me wonder WTF is he thinking. Again, I know this is starting to look like parody of the men's rights movement. But you people did read Janet Bloomfield's blog with me, you have witnessed firsthand the stupidity that can exist within the Tratkin anti-feminist movement.
2. Most girls major in useless subjects that contribute nothing to the world.
So do most guys, and this is basically Janet Bloomfield's argument on why women should stay home, not that she's a traditionalist.
Feminists love bragging about how girls are now earning the majority of college degrees. But they never bring up the fact that the majority of girls' degrees are worthless in every way. Girls predominantly major in subjects like ethnic studies, women's studies, English, communications and the like that require no work of any kind and give them no job prospects. As Aaron Clary shows in this video, the majority of useful, STEM, degrees are still going to men. What career prospects does a 22-year-old girl with a bachelor's in arachnid sexuality have? Dim ones. If they're lucky, they'll end up becoming lawyers, civil servants or HR commissars, careers whose economic and social value is less than zero.
Many civil servant positions pay good money, lawyers are famous for making a lot of money. I don't know what a HR commissar is, I think this is your slang for human resource managers, which tend to make more money than the people they hire in many cases. Look, I'm not saying the professions you've listed are so high paying that you'll be cruising around in a Ferrari, but you'll be paying your rent.
Those fields exist solely to employ the unemployable and leech off the productive.
What?
What? I'm sorry, I must have been tripping, can you say that shit again?
Those fields exist solely to employ the unemployable and leech off the productive.
So jobs are made up, by someone, companies, government, fairy godmother, somebody. Jobs are made for the purpose of handing people money who otherwise could not hold a job earning money. And thus they are parasitically leeching off of the work of others. Dude, you're kidding, right? First off, no company is going to do this, there is no profit motive. Second, even under a command economy like Soviet Russia, people who were unemployable, like blind people, cripples, schizophrenics, mentally retarded, they stayed home and got paid bare minimum survival wage. Even a command economy does not manufacture job positions or industries for the sake of justifying a paycheck to people. I'd say you're being hyperbolic, but you are actually just saying something Janet Bloomfield has said.
It's Marxist feminism. Follow the money. The more you cripple a family, the more you make a family an absolutely, utterly ineffective way of supporting individuals inside that family, the more you need a big state. The more you need state employees. The more you need, oh, guess what? Jobs for women who are essentially unqualified to do anything other than file papers alphabetically and answer the fucking phone.
Yeah, apparently there is this behind the curtains conspiracy to artificially create jobs for the sake of justifying an excuse to employ the unemployable. Yeah, some job positions in the free world, like America, are artificially, magically, puffed into being, for no other purpose than to have some excuse to pay otherwise unemployable people, like women. Not like there is a need for human resource managers, not like that serves any kind of purpose. It's not like anyone needs people to make phone calls and answer the phone. There's no need for this function. It's just that to give women and other unemployables an excuse to collect a paycheck. Right, moving on now.
A select few might hit the jackpot and enter politics, where they can do an even better job of sucking our blood. Clary showed in his book Worthless that the majority of American politicians have degrees in useless, parasitical subjects like law, Democrats more so than Republicans.
Of course!
But the vast majority of girls will end up living at home when they graduate, struggling to make their monthly student loan payments on a Starbucks salary.
So these degrees you have deemed useless, are held by the majority of politicians. Yeah, kids, don't get a useless degree in law. You might end up being a president or something. Wouldn't want to end up a mayor, a governor, or a senator.
Clearly, slaving away for minimum wage is way more fulfilling than being a wife and mother. Furthermore, having all these girls earning these pointless degrees has lessened the value of a degree, period. It's common knowledge that the rarer something is, the more valuable it is. When our parents were our age, college degrees were uncommon enough that merely having one guaranteed you a good job.
And back in the days of the Civil War, your average man who supported his family probably couldn't read, so fuck being literate. Look how hard it's made our lives.
And you could secure most jobs with a 1-hour interview. Now that everyone and their mother has a degree, employers cross-examine you, like you're on the witness stand, scrutinizing your GPA, your extracurriculars and making you complete stupid questionnaires that analyze how good of a team player you are, none of which has any bearing on how well you can do the job. In their childish quest for independence, girls have made it more difficult for everyone, including themselves, to get a good-paying job.
See what happens when girls, those precious jewels, leave their jewelry box? They fuck everything up. Everything you just said in this paragraph is wrong. Everything from increasing the amount of college graduates lowers the value of a degree, to it all being the fault of women leaving the home. Everything is just bullshit.
3. Having girls working makes it more difficult for anyone to earn high wages.
No, it doesn't. I debunked this in the Bloomfield trial, for anyone who wants an explanation.
It astounds me how so many feminists have absolutely no knowledge of economics.
It astounds me how many anti-feminists don't understand economics either.
Here's a hard lesson for you girls. Labor is a commodity. And like all other commodities, labor is subject to the laws of supply and demand. When the supply of a commodity outpaces demand, its price, in this case, wages, goes down. When demand outpaces supply, the price goes up. This basic law is why a Walmart in Canton, Ohio is holding canned food drives for its own employees while the Walmart in Williston, North Dakota has to pay its workers $21 an hour and give them free hotel rooms. Labor is plentiful in Ohio and scarce in North Dakota.
You're referring to economic bubbles inside of a transitional stage of economic growth. Also, that oil fracking thing over there has recently generated economic growth, and there is a massive influx of people into that area contributing to the economic growth. Once it hits its peak, it stabilizes and will be no better, and if people start leaving even in small numbers, the whole damn thing collapses. Furthermore, in many regards, where there is higher wage, there is higher overall cost of living. Anyhow, I would say you are trying to pull a sleight of hand here, but you're not that smart. You're just rehashing the sleight of hand pulled by the Spearhead article that you linked to. Economics is a very complicated thing, but I assure you, women are not behind our economic problems. I'm not saying feminism hasn't been costly, just that its overall effect on our nation's economy is rather small. Just look at other countries where women are working, many of them have as high of a female workforce as America, and a far better economy, and there's no shortage of traditional patriarchal nations where women don't work, and their economy is shit. In fact, there's actually a bit of a correlation between good strong industrialized nations with good economies, having a high prevalence of working women. You can claim correlation is not causation, and that's fine, but what you can't tell me is that women working hurts the economy, because that statement flies in the face of reality. You talk about women joining the workforce in the 1970s and the economy starts going downhill. You are talking as if the only nation that exists is America, because this trend has not been happening in other countries. Even a cursory glance will show you that. But do go on, Matt, tell us more how it's feminists who don't understand economics.
Leftists lament how wages have stagnated since the 70s and how the gaps between the rich and poor has never been wider, but they can't admit that feminism is a big reason why Americans are getting poorer by the day.
Maybe that's because feminism isn't the reason, and you're just kinda stupid?
The mass entry of girls into the workforce that began in the 70s conveniently coincides with the stagnation and decline of American wages.
You have it backward. Economic times got harder, which pressured women to join the workforce. It's one of those rare times when correlation is causation. You just have it backward, as any actual economist will tell you.
As well as the decline of unions. Whereas a man could comfortably support his family on his own back in the 50s and 60s, it takes both parents working to raise a family today, assuming the couple can even afford to buy a house and have children to begin with. Additionally, the presence of girls in the labor force has feminized the economy and made it less productive as a whole.
I read the article you linked to. No, just no.
Because girls are unable and/or unwilling to actually take useful positions in the trades, manufacturing or other blue-collar fields, I can't mind coal. I might break a nail. The American economy had to be reconfigured to employ them somehow. The solution was to demonize the trades and create new useless white-collar positions such as human resources. Corporations used feminists as pawns to help promote outsourcing and free trade in the 80s, early 90s and push pointless office jobs as the new middle-class ideal. And all of those coveted white-collar jobs conveniently require the 4-year degree, enriching the leftist universities as well.
This is a nonsensical conspiracy theory. I don't even know how to debunk this, because everything you just said is utter nonsense.
As a result, we live in a country where a girl who makes $30,000 a year at a nonprofit is more highly regarded than an electrician who makes 3 times that.
What the fuck are you talking about? Look, pretending you have a point, which you don't, but let's just pretend you did. Who cares how work is regarded? A job either pays well or it doesn't. This idea that corporations conspired to manipulate people's job choices by glamorizing certain jobs in ways that ultimately benefited leftist universities, is fucking absurd. I don't even think Alex Jones would buy this.
Not only that, girls have altered the workplace itself for the worst. Government bureaucracies and other female-run institutions are
Government bureaucracies are female-run institutions, perhaps in the secretarial portion of it, that's it.
Are governed by rules both written, for example sexual harassment laws, and unwritten that make it impossible to be frank, encouraging cattiness and backstabbing. And with few exceptions, female employees all act as volunteer commissars, ready to blow you into the bossman the minute you upset their feelings. You can't be direct or honest because you never know what your coworkers will find offensive, making it difficult to get any work done.
Okay, for the first time, I will agree with you. This is one, Matt. I'm doubtful you'll get a second one.
But it gets worse than that. Feminism is in part responsible for the current economic crisis.
No, it wasn't.
It was girls' desire for a never-ending supply of cheap crap. More than 80% of consumer spending is controlled by women. That resulted in the outsourcing of American manufacturing to China and
No, outsourcing is a result of free market. If little brown kids overseas will do it cheaper, and there are no, or low, import taxes, then that's where your factories go.
And the rise of big box stores like Walmart that squash local businesses and pay their workers the bare minimum allowed by law.
Free market? Trust me, it's not feminism. Actually, the market is not entirely free, because there is a lawful minimum wage. If that law wasn't there, the employees would be paid even less. But then again, that might stop all the outsourcing. But then we'd be working as if we lived in a third world. Economics, It's complicated. But stop blaming feminism.
By law, it's girls fornicating with wild abandon and divorcing their husbands on a whim that has led to the epidemic of single moms and the subsequent strain on social services. It's girls going to the doctor every time they get a boo-boo that has resulted in hard-working, healthy men like me having our insurance premiums skyrocket under Obamacare.
Girls fornicating with wild abandon may have something to do with the birth control pill. Women are leaving their husbands because they can, and girls go to doctors more because they get sick more, and wouldn't go to the doctor any less if there were no feminism, or if girls stayed out of college or stayed out of the workforce. Scapegoat much?
And it's girls being unable to pay off their student loans that will lead to the next economic collapse.
Male students are also having a difficult time paying back student loans, and like I've already explained, women going to college isn't the reason.
4. Education and work are bad for girls' physical and mental health.
Oh come on, how can you not see he's trolling you?
Captain, I'm not sure he is. I know he has had fun trolling the manosphere in the past. He posed as a woman and had a website called Victoria's Secret Garden, where he wrote articles about Christian marital discipline such as punishing your wife with butt plugs. But I don't think this article is a hoax. It falls too much in line with everything else he says on this site, and when he reveals his trolling, he has done it on this site. Captain, I think the man is legit on this issue. Even on his blogs about section, one of the things he represents is traditional gender roles.
I'm an author, journalist and entrepreneur originally from Syracuse, New York, currently based in New York City. I started this blog in April of 2012 to chronicle a hitchhiking trip I took from Syracuse to Portland, Oregon, in order to see America, shock myself out of my comfort zone, and change my life. The trip lasted 6 months and took me more than 3,500 miles across 16 states and through several of America's major cities, including Chicago, Minneapolis and Seattle. Following the trip, I became an author, publishing books such as Confessions of an Online Hustler, The Hitchhiking Crash Course, and more. You can learn more about my books by visiting mattforneybooks.com. Prior to starting this blog, I ran the online magazine in Malafide from 2009 to 2012. The best articles from that site are collected in the book 3 Years of Hate. I'm also a graduate of Christian Brothers Academy and trained in English and journalism at the University at Albany and SUNY Plattsburgh. My current writing focuses on location-independent living, self-publishing and making money online, traditional sex roles and current events. My articles have also been published at Tacky's Magazine, Alternative Right, Return of Kings, Reaction, The Spearhead and other sites. You can find an archive of everything I've ever written by clicking here.
Like I said, he puts his advocacy of traditional gender roles right on his About section. He has many articles just like this on this website. I think he is for real on this shit, but even if you convinced me his entire blog is a joke, and the whole thing is satire, what about all the people in the comments of his blog agreeing with him? Guess where those people end up running their mouths? In the men's rights movement. So if this man's entire blog is satire, it is satire of the men's rights movement, and all, or most, of his supporters are men's rights activists who are buying it hook, line and sinker, because they actually hold these beliefs. And as I was saying in my other video, this is what all the blogs in the old anti-feminist community looked like. Oh, and how many of these arguments did Janet Bloomfield herself make? Do you see what I mean, that the shit he is saying on this blog is not an isolated thing? This is really how the men's rights movement, the bulk of the manosphere, thinks.
4. Education and work are bad for girls' physical and mental health. It makes me laugh to see how effectively corporate America has made feminists into their most favored bets. Whenever feminists crow about the end of men, what they're really saying is, haha, we girls make way better slaves than you loser guys.
So Matt, men working like slaves is good, women working like slaves is bad, white knight much?
Jezebel and Gawker Media exemplify this contradiction best. All the girls writing there eagerly sound the gospel of female empowerment to make money for a man, Nick Denton, who pays them barely above minimum wage. Yes massa, Pax Dickinson is a misogynist racist asshat. Can I pretty please have a cookie, massa? But beneath this you-go-girl facade is a well of pain and suffering. Despite all the feminists telling them that they should be happy to be liberated, female unhappiness is higher now than it's ever been.
Boo-hoo, poor women. This is something else I am tired of seeing in the men's rights community. This feminism is bad because it hurts women too, I swear. The white knightism is strong with these mainshiners. And again, I shall reiterate, the bulk of all this feminist bashing is nothing more than anger about women joining the workforce and breaking their traditional gender role.
Far more girls than men are suffering from mental illness, and antidepressant use among girls has gotten so bad that the drinking water of major cities like London is turning into a toxic soup. Every strong, independent woman knows in her heart that her life is hell on earth. It's only her pride that keeps her from admitting the truth.
Dear feminists, if you want to put an end to the men's rights movement, just stop working. Their only real objection to feminism is women's participation in the workforce. So by all means, ladies, continue crying about rape culture, street harassment, misogyny, a need for consent culture, men spreading, mansplaining, typical male pig this and typical male pig that. Just stay home, don't lift a finger. Your vagina entitles you to the fruits of a man's labor, and you can still divorce and take his shit. Men will never blame women, never blame their own bad tradcon behavior, never catch on to what is going on. They'll just keep blaming leftists, or communists, or Jews, or the Illuminati, or whatever other wonky scapegoats these types blame their shit on.
Recently, a friend of mine who quit her job to become a homemaker and returned to the workforce when her children grew older admitted to me that she preferred being a housewife. Why? It was less stressful. When she didn't work, all she had to worry about was taking care of her kids, cooking and keeping the house clean. While she and her husband are wealthier now that they have 2 incomes, her life is never-ending misery.
To hell with the fact it's made her husband's life easier because it alleviates a ton of burden on his shoulders, and provides more financial security to the entire family unit. To hell with that. What about her happiness? She's female, clearly her happiness as a woman trumps all. Do you understand why us MGTOW call you tradcons just as bad as the feminists, a bunch of white knights?
Her female boss constantly belittles and abuses her. Her co-workers are gossipy do-nothings who refuse to pull their weight, making her pick up the slack. Her health has deteriorated to the point where she's developed stress-related carpal tunnel. From the kitchen to the cubicle, isn't freedom grand? The reality is that girls always submit to men. It's unavoidable. The only question is what kind of man she submits to. Will it be to a husband who protects her, provides for her and will love her until death do them part? Or will it be to a CEO like Nick Denton or some other corporate manager who views her as a tool to enrich himself, who will kick her to the curb as soon as she's no longer useful?
So all of your concern over women going to college, is that they will get a job, and your concern that they will get a job means they can't fully submit to their husband, which means your entire gripe about feminism is really based on your cock's desire to make women submit to you. Shades of all that housewife fetish porn, coming back to haunt me. Feminism is a woman's desperate cry to be cock-smacked into subservient obedience by a dominant man.
Even feminism itself is an invention of men, specifically Rousseau and the philosophers of the Enlightenment. Mary Wollstonecraft and other female thinkers were never more than sideshow freaks.
In your eagerness to white knight for the female sex, you actually take the entire blame off of women, and give all credit to men. Feminism, it's a byproduct of statism. Feminism, it's the fault of leftists. Feminism, it's the fault of Jews. Feminism, it's the fault of Karl Marx. Feminism, it's the fault of government. Feminism, it's the fault of the corporations. Feminism, it's the fault of the communist conspiracy. Feminism, it's the fault of socialism. Feminism, it's the fault of men. MGTOW say, feminism, it's the fault of women, and we're all a bunch of misogynists for saying that.
Deep inside, girls know what they want. They just need authoritative men to give it to them.
Yeah, cock smack them into submission. Fuck the feminist right out of her.
If you're a girl, you should only go to college if you can meet one or more of these criteria, major in something useful. Here's a pointer to figuring out if a degree is useful. Does it involve math? If not, you're wasting your time. I recommend Aaron Clary's Worthless if you want more info. Go to a quality school. If you can't make it into the Ivy League or another high-quality institution such as UVM or Binghamton, you have no business going to college. Have your parents pay for it. I don't mean co-signing your student loans, I mean having daddy take his wallet out and cover your costs in full. If you're rich enough that your parents can afford college without any loans, it doesn't much matter what you do. The rest of you girls? We're here to take you back to the place you secretly long to be, the place where you belong, the kitchen. Now, on your knees.
Remind me how my insistence that the great bulk of this tradcon shit being routed in sexual fantasy and sexual dysfunction is a straw man. We'll go to another blog entry by this guy, which will have to wait until the next video, to be released tomorrow. I figure as much as people gripe about my long videos, splitting them into 2 parts can help some people short on time.